Dispenser going up. Well, I guess that'll do.
I love the shotgun. It's definitely one of the most underrated, underappreciated weapons in all of Team Fortress 2. It often feels like the shotgun gets no love from every class that can equip it, mostly because there are alternative unlocks that fit the typical playstyle of those classes better than the default, which is fair. For example, I think the thing that is often ignored about the shotgun is just how satisfying it is to shoot. I'm definitely biased here, but anything that goes and instantly rewards you with is a dopamine source for anyone playing a first-person shooter. But specifically on the Engineer, it seems like the shotgun is outshined by not only the other slot options, but it also has the issue of being overshadowed by the entire concept of Engineer in the first place. Engie is appealing to most players because of his ability to build a machine that does the shooting for you, so why in the world would you pay any attention to the manual weapons at your disposal? A lot of people would probably agree with the thought that while the Engineer is the only class who equips the shotgun in his primary weapon slot, most people perceive the Engineer's true primary weapon to be the sentry gun, and they'll usually relegate his manually firing guns to a last resort, or worse, will just straight up ignore them. And to a certain extent, this thought process is kind of true. The Engineer is considered a light class with no mobility options tied into his default kit, so in order to balance the power and accuracy of the sentry gun, the Engineer is given what is normally a secondary weapon as his primary weapon, and he's expected to have a sentry gun by his side in order to come toe-to-toe with the damage output of the other classes. And a sentry gun by itself is a formidable opponent if only for the amount of damage it can do because of its perfect accuracy, but it also has a ton of weaknesses. It's completely stationary, so it's easy to hit, it has limited range, so its placement is vital, and it is weak to many items that are specifically designed to destroy buildings. So treating a sentry gun like the Engineer's only means of doing damage is pretty risky, and you end up leaving your success up to how poor the enemy is at destroying a stationary target, or how much your team might be carrying you. In my opinion, pairing the power of a sentry gun with your own personal weapons is where the Engineer evolves from a guy who babysits a robot for a little while into what is essentially a slow scout with some devastating backup behind him. Thinking of your personal weapons and your sentry gun not as primary and secondary to each other, but rather as two parts of the same whole is where the true potential of the Engineer is unlocked, and that's where the stock shotgun comes in. The shotgun is a pretty simple gun relative to most things in TF2. It has 6 rounds, fires 10 pellets, and can do up to 90 damage per shot at point blank range. Overall, the gun shines as a finisher tool in most situations, following up on the damage you or your teammates already did to secure the kill. However, in close range situations, 90 damage is nothing to scoff at, and it's entirely possible to take down even the beefiest of enemies in a few clean shots before they can effectively retaliate. As Engineer, most of the time that you'll want to be using the shotgun is to defend your buildings from spies, and in an ideal situation, you'll be teaming up with your own sentry gun to blast someone back into oblivion. However, being a stock weapon, it can often suffer from its generalized use and is usually passed over during a lot of very common game states, such as the Rescue Ranger being preferred in defensive situations where maintaining a solid nest is a priority, or the Frontier Justice when you're able to more easily snowball off of the weaker enemies. Even in the case of the Battle Engineer, the Widowmaker and especially the Panic Attack could be considered direct upgrades depending on the map. And of course, there's the issue of random bullet spread, something I've talked about many times regarding the Engineer shotguns, which makes choosing the Panic Attack over the shotgun a no-brainer in casual mode, even on maps where you're typically fighting at medium to long ranges. However, on community servers, like mine, where scattergun and shotgun bloom is fixed, the shotgun can usually be treated like a stock weapon should, as the default equipment until something happens to warrant changing to an unlock more suited to the situation. How I've always approached using the stock shotgun typically goes like this. Before leaving the spawn room, I'll assess the situation, aka the game state. First of all, if I already have a sentry gun built and it has enough kills and assists on it to reward me with 3 or more revenge crits, I'll switch to the Frontier Justice. If I happen to be playing in casual mode, I'll typically switch to the panic attack right away just because it has fixed spread. Otherwise, the panic attack usually comes out if the map I'm playing on has a lot of tight spaces where I end up in the enemy's face a lot, or if I'm being pestered by a relentless spy. If I'm playing Battle Engineer and my team happens to have a medic who doesn't completely ignore me and routinely overheals me, or even more rarely is willing to pocket me when I walk forward, I'll equip the Widowmaker. I'll also sometimes equip the Widowmaker if I feel like the enemy is grouping up a lot, and as a result, reloading is costing me a lot of potential damage. In other words, if there are a lot of enemies to shoot, it's Widowmaker time. If I'm playing in a heavily defensive situation, almost exclusively around my sentry gun, and keeping my buildings alive is the top priority, I'll equip the Rescue Ranger, and if I feel like torturing myself at the expense of occasionally irritating the enemy medic, I'll use the Thompson. In every other situation besides the ones that I just listed, the shotgun is going to be the safe, reliable pick, given those situations are pretty common and often unavoidable, so in some games, the shotgun may never see play even for one life. However, that doesn't mean that the stock shotgun is a bad weapon. In fact, it's a pretty amazing weapon that is undervalued by users and underestimated by enemies simultaneously, especially when equipped by the engineer. As long as your aim is on point, you will be a force to... Huh? What? What's that? You suck at aiming your shotgun. Oh, right. How could I have forgotten? Well, honestly, I can't really tell you how to get better. Everyone aims in their own way, believe it or not. For example, the most common ways of aiming include tracking your target while holding down the fire button, flicking your crosshair to the target while simultaneously pressing the fire button, placing your crosshair where the enemy is about to be and pressing fire when the target falls behind it, Guitar Hero style. But everyone's got their own thing, and whatever feels comfortable for you is usually fine, even if it's technically not the ideal way to aim. Take me for instance, look at how I aim my shotgun. I often use this weird, inefficient version of the flick method where I move my crosshair to the enemy and fire, then reset my crosshair back to the ground for no reason before flicking again, and this is without a doubt not an ideal way to aim if you're going for efficiency. And it's not like I intentionally do this, it's just kinda how I do it. It's definitely more of a habit than a conscious choice. But the thing is, it kind of works. Like, I certainly wouldn't recommend that people go out of their way to do it like this, but since it works for me, all I can really say is that you should probably just practice aiming and don't worry so much about how you aim and focus on getting your muscle memory down. In fact, I feel like the more I think about how I'm aiming, the worse my aim tends to get. And that's just me. Like, I am definitely just one of those players who is really good at getting in my own head when it comes to deathmatch situations, and I've found that if I just let go of any expectation to do something specific and act almost entirely off of instinct, that is where my skill is the most consistent. At some point, if you do something enough times, you'll just get better at it naturally without any concrete idea of how you got there. So for everyone who keeps asking me how to get better at aiming or to make a video specifically about aim training, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but not only am I not really the best person to ask about that, my approach to the question of improvement of a mechanical skill like aiming is pretty much just get good, but you know, more philosophical to make it not seem so rude. Just play TF2. Don't use a name trainer. Don't try and emulate the exact methodology of a pro gamer. Just keep playing. Overall, the shotgun on Engineer is a great weapon. Sure, it's not always going to be useful, but that's only a result of the majority of the Engineer's weapons being so well designed, and I can't complain too much about that. But believe me, I will. On one hand, I wanted to spend the entirety of this video hyping the thing up so that everyone would just stop underestimating the power of a little Texan man with a shotgun, but then again, that's also what makes using it so fun sometimes. So yeah, forget everything I just said, just keep running at me with utmost confidence that I'll beef my shots, because believe me, I totally will do that. But sometimes, I won't.